Welcome, everyone. Just want to welcome Ed as well, um, our principal speaker in our room of seeing opportunity in devastation, stories to inspire. And last week, if you haven't listened to our podcast for episode 7, entitled Stop Sales Funnel Leakage, it explained what a sales funnel is and also highlighted issues around leakage through the size of the stepped sales funnel. Now, this week we actually have a question from Mpo, and I'm going to invite her just to ask a question and let Ed respond to that. Mpo,
Hi, Jacques. Hi, Ed.
go
Hi.
ahead.
So the question that I had last week you were talking about the never buyer, and currently I've been experiencing those, and I wanted to understand because I think you also made the analogy with the people who are going to view homes but they're not buying. So sometimes someone who's into a property will be able to tell that this person is obviously not going to buy a house. Maybe they've have experience to be able to see that. But now we've moved into this digital space where we don't get the opportunity to really meet with the person face to face, and get a nice view of what they if they're interested in buying or not. And we've moved into a space of lead generation forms where people interact with our ad, and then into a lead generation form. And we found that the never buyers are responding to the ad, but when we contact them, they're not really buying the product. So, in terms of the lead generation form, the descriptions and the wording that we're using, what phrasing and wording can we use to attract the right customers from the lead generation form that we put out there?
Thanks, Bo. A very good question. Um, the never buyer really falls into two serious categories. The first category is just the tire kicker. They are simply going around. I use the illustration of people going to show houses to look at beautiful properties. The same thing happens to the motor car world, where people will stroll into a motor car dealer and maybe even ask for a test drive of a top end car with no intention at all of buying it. So those are just the tire kickers, the people who are not serious buyers, and they can be a pain. Generally speaking, in the digital world, they won't fill in a lead generation form. Um, they'll go for the freebies. If you offer a free 15-minute introduction, they'll book for that for sure.
Mm,
But they generally won't want to commit themselves. The second and perhaps more dangerous one is the buyer who would like to have it, um,
mm,
but has not actually cost justified it, or it does not have the authority to spend the budget. And they can be really persistent. They keep fooling you. And as you say, in the digital world, you can't read the body language. You can't,
mm,
look at where they are in how serious they are, from that you would have perhaps from a face-to-face meeting. However, the digital world does have pluses. So when you get a lead generation form, it's probably worthwhile. I don't know if you get hundreds of them, but probably it's more like dozens of them. It's fairly
mm,
easy to look them all up on LinkedIn and Facebook and wherever they have profiles. That's the plus of their digital age, that nobody hides anymore. And if you find they have no profile on the internet, then I would be very, very cautious indeed. A simple Google inquiry will usually throw up the contact details of the person. Um, there is an awful lot of information about all of us on the internet right now, some of which we don't even know about or would be embarrassed to find. Yeah. you would be surprised how many apps are feeding information to Google and Facebook and so on. And some of those apps might be a bit confidential.
Mm.
But um, so you can check these buyers out and see, are they actually in a position to do this? Are they at the level um, in uh, solution sales? They talk about the buyer being above the money line. Do they have the capacity to commit the budget or the capacity to strongly recommend that the budget be committed? And you can often tell that from a profile.
Mm.
Um, it's unlikely that an intern will be able to commit a large organization to to an expenditure. So you may be able to pick up something from that. Um, you may need to look at the phraseology of some of your lead gen forms and see
Mm.
whether the wording is right, whether it's there to actually attract buyers or potential buyers, or is just there to attract the idly curious. Um, we'll be touching a bit more on this particular subject during the course of today. And if by the end of today you haven't had all your questions answered, I'm happy to have a conversation with you about the individual questions that you're putting on your lead gen forms.
Okay.
Does that help so far?
That is perfect. Thank you so much, Ed.
Okay, great. All right. So as Jacques said, uh, we were talking about the sales funnel, which is not actually shaped like a slope-sided funnel, but more like a series of concentric discs with a small one at the bottom and the big one at the top. And what doesn't fall through to the next level leaks out the sides at each level of this. And we gave the example, for instance, of uh, property salesperson where they would put an advert out there and they would get, let's say, in a particular period, they would get 300 people looking at the advert, and of those, maybe 30 of them would come through to the agent and ask questions about the property. So now we have a leakage of 90% of all of the people who've looked at that ad. So somehow they've been attracted to that ad. It's fallen within their terms of reference because the property sites have search engines on them. So it's fallen within their search criteria. It's in the right area, it's in the right price range, it's the right configuration of bedrooms and garages and whatever. And they've looked at it and then they've taken it no further. And then the next level down from that would be the people who actually, from that discussion with the agent, and that's where the never, never ones come in, want to view the property. And once again, you have to be very cautious. Does the person have the capacity to view, to buy? And therefore, why do they want to view? So many of the astute property salespeople will do a qualification check. They will do a financial check. What level of bond is available to this person? Where are they staying? What properties do they own? Um, and checking their credit record and all sorts of things before they will allow them to come and view the property, so that they avoid the tire kickers, the people who are just going around to look. So we said in that example that of the 30, maybe five would view the property, and out of the five, maybe one or two would put in an offer, or maybe none. And then of all the 300 incoming sales leads, there was zero result. So there's a cost factor because you had a cost of the advert, you had a cost of the internet campaign, you had a cost of the photographer and everything else, and there was no result. And that happens quite frequently. Now, how do you improve on that? Well, the digital age is a wonderful thing and it's brought the most amazing marketing opportunities. We could not do what we routinely do today and even ignore how advantageous it is. We couldn't have done that 20 years ago. We just didn't have that kind of capacity. We could not have sent a single message that could be seen by tens of millions of people and cost us nothing to send. That was a marketer's dream 20 years ago. It would have cost a fortune to reach even 1 million people. That would have been a heavyweight TV ad, which reached maybe 30 million people. It would have cost an enormous amount, millions and millions of dollars. But now we can get a message out there for almost nothing. So it's given us major marketing opportunities. The downside is that it's also made us a little bit lazy, in which we exploit the opportunities to try and send the same message to almost everyone. So if we took our example again of the property sales, this goes on to a generic property sales site. Uh, Anyone can go and look at that site. Whether they are shopping for a 40 million rand mansion or a 500,000 rand apartment, anyone can go and look at that site. Um, And so it's a very broad appeal that goes out there. It's a bit like putting up a billboard, but even more so, because a billboard at least is in a place and you show it to whoever passes by. But it's in one place, so you have a certain geographic limitation of that. You have a certain financial limitation to that because the people going by must be in vehicles. So they either have taxi fare or they have bus fare or they are able to be in their own or somebody else's vehicle. So it actually cuts out a slice of the population. It also cuts out the slice at the other end, the people who are using helicopters to go to work. But that's a fairly small slice. Um,
Yes,
and they're probably not going to be buying off billboards anyway.
I don't think so.
So it's very unspecified target. And then within the ad, it tends to be a generic set of photographs. And if you look through houses, you'll see that every property set of photographs and the video of every property is roughly the same. They can blur into each other if you look at a lot of them. So the wording tends to be very, very similar. There's certain phrases that are used. Now, what you can do now is use the broad-based appeal of digital marketing, but target specifically the market that you want, that you believe would be the right market for the product that you're selling. So the wording of the advert or whatever communication it is absolutely crucial. That wording should be telling people whether this particular advert is for them or for someone else. And we really don't spend enough time on that. None of us, or very few of us, are perfect wordsmiths or perfect copywriters. And it is worthwhile getting some experience and some training from people who specialize in this field, and there are a number of them who do, who can make a world of difference by taking essentially the same phraseology and turning it around so it has meaning to a particular group of people. Similarly, the illustrations that you put with it. If you're trying to illustrate that the property offers luxury, then your illustration should show that. Why are we showing garage doors if the property offers luxury? Unless you've got 11 of them. If you are saying that the property offers leisure, then show the leisure facilities. If you are saying that the property offers economy, then feature on the bangs for buck, how much you're getting for how little money. So we can do an awful lot in the promotional material that we send out to narrow down that first level. You still get all those people looking at it, but to narrow down that circle so we don't get the 30 people coming out of that circle of which only 5 are seriously interested. So that's only 1/6 of the people who the property has now been attractive to, but they want to get some further detail. It means there was something missing from the ad. They might want to know what area it's in. They might want to know um, which way it faces. They might want to know what the size of the land is or anything like that, which may not be on the advert. And so they come through and they make an inquiry and then they say, no, that's no good for me, and don't take it any further. So crucially, that wording and the illustrations that you use, and it doesn't mean that it's only a property advert. This is anything. This is a blog. This is a Facebook post. This is a banner advertising campaign. This is the brochureware that you use, um, your website, everything else. All of these things, the wording on it is absolutely crucial. And the illustrations are absolutely crucial because those will be the things that attract people to your particular company and your particular product and service. So at the first level, try and filter out the people who are not going to be buyers of your property. We also used the illustration last week of the company that had a magic product for food canners, and where they started by targeting by identifying the whole of the food canning industry, and then they scaled it down to the ones that were in the right size and shape and geography for them. And then probably they should have gone a step further and looked at each of those companies and said, are they showing signs of growth? Are they looking strong? Have they got good intentions? Do they show their ambitions? Do they tell about their targets and goals, which most websites will? How do they look as a target market? Who are the owners? And once again, LinkedIn is a genius resource for that. Who are the owners? How old are they? Where are they? Same thing with the property opportunity. If you do your research into the market of similar properties in a similar area, you will find who the buyers were, because estate agents can get to that, what prices they paid, and their ID number. That will give you their age, their gender, and a whole lot of other information about them. So you now know how much they had to spend, what age, and what gender they are. Now, if you try and segment your advertising, and you can do this through something like a Facebook campaign, you target it to that gender and that age group and that income level. And you thin down the number of wasted time wasters that come in to talk to you. And so you can go down the levels. Once you start getting to the actual individual customer contact where you're in a sales cycle, we go into a totally different loop. And there's a whole workshop on this. It's, I think, a 2.5 hour workshop that I run. And that is on how good are you at selling? And there are several categories at that. The first category are how good are your sales skills? How good are you at the business of selling, answering objections, defending prices, opening lead generation, qualifying potential customers in or out, uh, closing, presenting? How good are you at writing proposals? Not a bad idea to list those sort of things down and then give yourself a star rating, 1 to 5 there, and see how you stack up. Almost all of us will fall down in one or more of those respects. That's just sales skills. That's just the technical business of selling. Now, what about product knowledge? How much do you know about the product and its history and the number of people who use it, and their average usage of the product and their satisfaction rating of the product, and so on. So the second criteria is how good is your product knowledge? And then the third category is how good is your industry knowledge? How well have you studied what's happening in your industry? And this is an area where I'm afraid many entrepreneurs and many salespeople fall down very, very badly. They may be not bad on sales skills, they may be probably quite good on product knowledge, but in terms of industry, they're not great. They don't follow the industry trends. They don't read the blogs. They don't listen to the podcasts, not about the buyers who are going to buy from you, but about what is happening. For instance, in the food canning industry, what is happening there? What are the things that they talk about? What are the things they worry about? What concerns them? What opportunities are there? Is the industry growing or declining? Are there changes? Or is food canning becoming food bottling, for instance, or some different form of packaging? What about the costs of the materials that they use? All of that information is available to you. It's all in the industry talk, and that industry talk would be around. Similarly with property sales, you can get the basic information around from an awful lot of property news sites, from an awful lot of property gurus, from all sorts of sources. But people perhaps don't spend as much time on this, and it's hard and boring work. You need also to know what the trends are in the economy and all the other things. So you need to listen to all these boring programs and all these boring podcasts and read all these boring blog posts and everything else. And you don't get quite as much time on Instagram as you used to. But then, hey, do you want to be popular or do you want to be rich? So industry knowledge is an absolute key. And then, how well do you know your customer needs? We've talked about this many, many times, so I'm not going to go in depth here. But how well do you actually know the deep needs of the customers? If you don't know what's happening in the industry, I promise you, you do not know the needs of your customer, not as well as you should. So, how well do you know your customer needs? And again, there's a whole section behind this. Um, how well do you know how urgent their needs are, how frequent their needs are, what they're prepared to spend to address their needs? All of those kind of questions, and you can give yourself a star rating on each one of these. And then the big one, time and territory management or time and market management. How good are you at time management? How much time do you spend actually selling? Talking to customers, writing proposals, preparing offers, uh, canvassing, lead generation, responding to inquiries, all of the business of selling. If you're an average person doing sales or an average entrepreneur, probably less than half of your total time, because our world has become very bureaucratic. There are an awful lot of meetings, and it's so easy to set up a quick Zoom meeting nowadays, wherever you are. Um, so, how much time do we spend, and how efficiently do we spend the time? What time gets wasted? What do you spend time on that you should not be spending time on? Not productive sales time, at least. So if you want to go and browse on Facebook or any of the sites, by all means do that. But do that out of productive sales time. Don't be sitting on one of the social media sites going down one of the many, many rabbit holes at 10 o'clock in the morning or 2:30 in the afternoon. That's prime time for customer interactions. You don't want to be wasting that sort of time. So once again, in time management, and you can get an awful lot of courseware on time management, you can get an awful lot of information on time management. There's certain criteria you should use. How much time are you spending in productive work? How much idle time is there? How much wasted time is there? How much bureaucracy is there? How much time are you spending in administration? And how efficiently are those spaced? How are they throughout the day? Are you spending a lot of time driving through rush hour? for instance. So you can list those, give yourself a star rating 1 to 5 on each of those, and usually with time management, you will be a little shocked. We're not great time managers as people. We are pretty good time wasters in a lot of instances. And again, management of the available market or your territory or whatever section of business you're going after. How well do you know it? What are the numbers on it today? Who's growing? Who's falling? How are you mapping where you should spend your time in that particular target market or territory? You need to know it awfully well to do that. And once again, that's probably not a very well managed area of life. And lastly, how good are you at customer service? We all say the company is great at customer service. We all say we're great at customer service. But are you really? What's your response time to an email? What is your response time to an incoming WhatsApp message? Do your customers know what the expectation is of response time? How good are you at actually satisfying customer needs? How good are you at dealing with customer complaints and sorting out the complaint to the satisfaction of the customer, not to your satisfaction? How good are you at customer services? Once again, a whole lot of sections. Give yourself a 1 to 5 star. Then add up each of the sections and then add the sections together and see where you are. If you're running at 4.5 stars, great. Don't listen to the next podcast. You're doing all right. Just get out there and go and do it. Make a lot of money. If you're running down at about 1.5, you need to do a bit of brushing up. And for the average person who's running somewhere between 2 and 3.5, you can do an awful lot better without considerable effort. And I suggest you do it. Unless, of course, you want to be entertained and popular but poor. That, as I say, is your choice. So, I think we're getting close to the end of the time here. That's what I've got today. We can maybe expand on a couple of these topics next week, because some of them are quite detailed. And once again, as with Paul, if you have a question, ask the question either on here or contact Jacques or myself. We're always ready to help and advise where we can.
Well, yeah, ditto. Thank you, Ed. I mean, once again, for anybody who's actually listening to us today or listening to the recording later on, I must tell you, these are real practical steps. There are times when, even if you know what you ought to do, but just listening to how Ed actually unpacks it for you in terms of how you can approach this, from how you need to segment your advertising to understanding your proficiency at selling. How good are you at actually selling? Do you understand the sales process? And then again, I mean, pointing out, do you know the product? Do you know the service, and so forth? And we've spoken a little bit about. Sometimes we've spoken about, do you know your industry? Do you make time to do the research? And so on and so on and so on. So really, thank you, Ed. And for those of you who are listening to this, once again, as Ed has pointed out, is if you rate yourself according to any of these points that Ed has highlighted, and you find yourself below 5 out of 10, it's time to do something. It's time to be inspired. Take one of these things that Ed is sharing with us and apply it in your business. And so, until next week, and we look forward to this is the foundation stone, and we've laid the foundation over nearly 18 episodes. So it's now getting to the point where, when you listen carefully, there's some real golden nuggets in everything that it is sharing with us, even in the stories that are being told. So once again, thank you for listening, and we will see you next week.